And hello, everyone. Channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content. If you want to take us on the go, we are streaming wherever podcasts are available. So if you haven't already, like us wherever you stream your daily podcasts. And we are talking on this beautiful Monday on a interesting topic about the New York Jets. Again, it's a bit of the slow season for the New York Jets content, but I still think there's a lot we can talk about with this team. And one of the things that I like to do on this channel, and this is one reason why I highly suggest that you subscribe, because we really listen to you. We put off this poll weeks ago about a video you would like. We come up with these ideas and I put out there, which ones would you like to see? And this was the top voter, which was the top 5 Jets X Factors for the 2025 season. Before I begin, I do want to tell you where I'm looking at this for a parameter. I'm looking at players who, if they have a very good season for the Jets, could help this team greatly. But I'm also looking at players that impact the long-term future of the Jets. If they have a good season, what it could mean for them and potentially others on this roster. So again, these are X factors that obviously, if they have a great season this year or perform above what is expected, this could maybe be the year the Jets finally end the playoff drought. But if they don't hit those expectations, then of course, it will be another long season. But there's a lot to get into. So let's look at it right now, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, these are our Jets X Factors for the 2025 season. And again, if you're joining us in the live chat, make sure to comment below, comment on what you would like to see, and also put in your questions. We are having super chats to get to the front of the line, or if you just want to make a donation to the channel to help us produce even more great content. So let's start it off, ladies and gentlemen, with our first X Factor for the 2025 season. And I think it's very obvious. It's Justin Fields. Justin Fields is the biggest X factor for the Jets, because if he plays like a top 5 pick, if he plays like a top 12 quarterback, top 14 quarterback in this league, the Jets have a good shot to make the playoffs. If Justin Fields plays like an average quarterback and the defense is great, maybe the Jets can win 6 to 8 games. But Justin Fields is bad and Justin Fields is turnover proof, or Justin Fields gets injured, that is quickly going to derail this Jets season. Again, you don't want to put everything on Justin Fields, but we know the importance of the quarterback position. And the Jets made it clear they didn't draft anyone in the draft. Justin Fields was their guy. They didn't bring anyone else in to compete with him. Yes, Tyrod Taylor, I think, could be good in a pinch. It could help this team maybe win 2 or 3 games if really needed. But they went all in on Justin Fields. And again, I do think it is the right call, looking at this draft class, looking at the age of Justin Fields, and looking at the upside. It's clear that he's a well-respected individual, both with the Steelers and the Bears. The big thing will be, can he be efficient enough? I think he'll be dynamic to win a couple games, especially with how much I think the Jets are going to utilize his legs and the running of this offense. But is he going to be a guy that also potentially costs this team a game or two because of indecision, because of accuracy issues, because of turnovers? It looked like he cleaned up the turnovers significantly in Pittsburgh last year. But if the Jets are going to move forward, and if the Jets are going to end the playoff drought, it's going to be largely due to Justin Fields playing like a great quarterback. And if Justin Fields really does play up this potential, then it changes the dynamic of this franchise. Maybe the Jets don't have to go into the draft in 2026 to draft a quarterback. But again, if Justin Fields struggles on the field this year, it greatly impacts the Jets long-term. If Fields is great, maybe he's this team's long-term quarterback, or at least a stopgap for a few years. But if he is not good this year, then we know we'll be talking in November about the NFL draft class and what quarterbacks the Jets could be potentially taking next April. Our second X factor is someone I've talked a lot with on the channel, and ironically was in the news today because he's changing his number on the Jets to number 6, and that is Malachi Corley. Now, Malachi Corley, I talked with Connor Hughes of SNY. The last coaching staff didn't love the maturity that he had. He has a new opportunity with an all-new coaching staff. If Malachi Corley is a dynamic player, and again, I'm not expecting him to be a number 2 wide receiver this year, but if he can be an integral part of this offense, whether it's through jet sweeps, whether it's a couple catches a game, whether it's even on kick or punt returns, just being a dynamic playmaker on this team, that will greatly impact this team, especially when you look at the lack of playmakers at the wide receiving position that aren't named Garrett Wilson. If Malachi Corley takes a big step forward, that's going to really help this team. It's going to help this receiving room, and it also could help this team potentially bring on Arian Smith a little bit slower. But if Malachi Corley struggles, if we see the immaturity there, if we see him not getting off to a good start, we will definitely see this team probably go look to Arian Smith. And maybe if the Jets need a receiver, they go trade for one at the deadline. But Malachi Corley is a fascinating character for this Jets this season because he is someone that has a lot to gain. He has an all-new coaching staff. He has an all-new system. He has an offense which he could potentially fit very well in. And he also has a quarterback that doesn't have his buddies coming to play with him like last season. But if Malachi Corley wants to make it in the NFL, if Malachi Corley wants to make a big impact, this is a big offseason and a big season for him in general. I think he could make a huge impact on this team, both on the running game, also in the kick return and punt return game. There's a lot he brings to the table, not necessarily in the wide receiver room. But if he can get more polished in his route running, if he can become a decent and even number 3 option for a wide receiver on this team, that will definitely pay dividends. But if he can't develop, then the Jets will likely go into next offseason looking for another receiver to pair with Garrett Wilson, whether it be in free agency or the 2026 NFL Draft. Our third X factor is an interesting one, and that's Braylon Allen. Now, full disclosure, I think Braylon Allen can have a very big year for the New York Jets this year, but I'm also very curious to see if Braylon Allen could push Breece Hall. I do think Braylon Allen was underutilized at points last year, but here's the big thing. Talking with Connor Hughes, yes, the Jets were not actively shopping Breece Hall. But if this team is 3-5, maybe 2-5 at the trade deadline, and a team offers a good pick for Breece Hall, and you feel Braylon Allen has proven that he can be the feature back on this team, that could certainly be an asset. Now, again, this coincides with basically Allen proving that he can be a team's number 1 running back or reliable running back. And if he can, don't forget, Allen, still very young, just turned 21, a younger running back than Breece Hall, someone that hasn't had the injury history of Breece Hall, and again, someone that isn't looking to get paid like Breece Hall in the short term. Now, again, I don't think trading Breece Hall is the best option, but depending on how the Jets season goes, depending on how Breece Hall is utilized, depending on how this running back room looks behind him, if you don't see a major difference in terms of production between Braylon Allen and Breece Hall, and the Jets are looking at a long-term build and saying, we have a guy under team control for 2 more years, we can get a valuable asset back for Breece Hall is a guy who we're not going to pay a ton of money long-term, that is definitely an asset. And really if Braylon Allen comes on, it could affect the dynamics of this team. If he struggles this year, I think the Jets are stuck and they can't move Breece Hall at all if that is one of their options. But if Braylon Allen can prove that he is a big-time running back in this league, and again, we saw flashes of it last year. If he can prove that he can add the home run ball to his game, maybe break off a big carry here or there, then that can be an incited move to maybe move on from Breece Hall. Again, I'm not clamoring to get rid of Breece Hall, but it would make it a little bit easier to stomach if I felt really good about the running back room, and especially the big battering number 0 behind him is looking like a full-time feature back. So again, if Braylon Allen has a huge 2025 season, it could definitely impact how this team and this roster is built in the coming years afterward. Let's shift to the defense again. Super chat to jump to the front of the line. Again, comments will be getting to you in just a moment. But again, those are my X factors on offense. I have 2 on the defensive side of the ball. Again, super chat, jump to the front of the line. Our next X factor is Leonard Taylor III, and I think this one is pretty obvious. You can make the case that arguably the biggest winner/loser from draft night could be Leonard Taylor III. Now, again, the Jets have added some other bodies on the defensive line. Yes, they've added some undrafted bodies, but Leonard Taylor III is someone that could greatly benefit from the Jets not drafting a defensive tackle. We feel that the coaching staff might be higher on him than we thought. Maybe that's why they were able to go with him. But if Leonard Taylor II can be a solid defensive tackle, and I'm not saying a great, but just a starting caliber defensive tackle that can play multiple downs, that can be decent in the run game, can add a bit of a burst in the pass rush game. We see he does have that pass rush burst. This could be a sneaky signing from the last regime. This could be a guy that is underrated and someone that helps fill out this defensive tackle room. And it feels like if Leonard Taylor III doesn't take that big step this year and struggles this year on the interior, the Jets are incredibly thin there. Yes, they could still potentially add maybe a discarded veteran from training camp or when roster cutdowns come on. But as of today, Leonard Taylor III is going to play a pivotal role in this D tackle room, whether it be as a situational defensive tackle, but more likely potentially pushing for a starting job. And if he's a good starting defensive tackle, this Jet front office looks like they made a great, shrewd decision not to draft a defensive tackle. However, if we're here in week 4, week 5, and the defensive tackles are not getting pushed, if this defensive tackles are not getting a burst in the run game, if they're not providing that punch, we're going to question the draft last year. And should the Jets have gone defensive tackle in an incredibly deep defensive tackle draft? And finally, our last X factor is Jermaine Johnson. Look, I love Jermaine Johnson. I think every Jet fans love this guy's leadership. They love his ability. They love what he's brought to the table. But here's the brutal reality. He is coming off a major injury, and there are two huge things at play this season. Number one, Jermaine Johnson has to prove that he is healthy. He is coming off a brutal injury last year, and he needs to be able to be on this field. And the quicker he's able to get up to full speed and play every down and be out there on the field will be huge for this Jet team. It's clear that this defense took a huge loss when he wasn't on the field, especially in the run defense department. And this is someone that also the Jets really need, because we saw it last year and we know from this offseason the Jets are incredibly thin at the defensive end position. And if Jermaine Johnson struggles early or gets hurt injury or has a setback early, that will greatly hurt the Jets in 2025. But the other big thing we have to keep in mind is this. He is going into his 5th-year option. The Jets are going to have some big decisions to make on Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, and now also Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson was drafted by the previous regime. There is a scenario where this new regime maybe doesn't value him as high as we do. And again, I want Jermaine Johnson here for the long term. I really love the kid. But if he goes through a season where it's an injury-prone season, he gets banged up, doesn't have the production that he had early in his career, there's a chance that the Jets will look at it and say that they don't want to invest that type of money into Jermaine Johnson as a defensive end. Again, you have to look at all the options. If Jermaine plays great next year and is healthy and plays like the guy we expect to get eight or 9 sacks a year, plays great in the run defense, he could be a big presence on this defense for a very long time. But we also have to look at the other end. If he gets hurt, if he's unproductive, if he struggles early because he still doesn't have his sea legs under him because of this Achilles injury, then you could look at it. Maybe the Jets might potentially move on or look to go in a different direction to build up their defensive end room. Because never forget, this is a guy who the last regime absolutely loved. And I do think he will fit what Aaron Glenn wants to bring to the table. But once again, this is a regime that doesn't have ties to these players and a regime that didn't draft them. So I do think that's very important. So those are my X factors for the 2025 season. Now, again, full disclosure, when I talked about these X factors, in case you're joining us later in the video or in the podcast, the reason I put this out there was I think not only do they make a big impact on the 2025 results, but we have to look at this for a long-term build, because that's what the Jets are doing. And these are key players that can help expedite the rebuild or make it longer. If Malachi Corley hits, then the Jets maybe don't have to worry about getting a receiver. If Justin Fields is a hit, then maybe the Jets don't have to invest a ton of capital to go and get a quarterback next year, or can draft the quarterback later in the draft and develop someone instead of trading up to get a top 5 pick potentially next year. But Jermaine Johnson, if he's healthy and comes out of the gate like we're all hoping, then the Jets defense looks completely different. But if he's a little bit slow because of the injury, because of the rehab, because he's just not there right at the start of the season, we know the Jets lack defensive end depth. Leonard Taylor III, again, if the Jets passed on defensive tackles, an incredibly deep defensive tackle draft, if he's a hit, then great. If he's not, then we're going to look back maybe week 5 or 6 and be saying, why didn't the Jets invest in a defensive tackle? And finally, I think a big one that is getting underused is Braylon Allen, because if Braylon Allen looks really good for this team, who's under team control, maybe does Breece Hall become expendable at the trade deadline? Because don't forget, the Jets are going to have to invest a lot of money in Garrett Wilson. They're going to have to invest $100 million in Sauce Gardner. They're probably, if at the end of the day, I think that probably Jermaine is high on their list as well. So when you look at those 3 players and you look at Breece Hall, who's going to now be going through his 4th year as a running back, and if a team offers to give you a very good pick in the middle of the season and you feel you can get similar or very close production with Braylon Allen, then that changes the dynamic of how you can build a roster. All right, guys, let's get into your comments. Danger Zone, hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks, Danger Zone. And of course, check him out every Friday night at 9 o'clock on his YouTube channel. Did a great job last week. Popped into the show for a little bit. I'm sorry I couldn't watch more Danger Zone. I'm helping my my dad move right now. So my Friday night was very exciting. It was putting a lot of pictures in boxes, getting them ready to move. Rico the Pup, if the Lions found a way to use Jameson while he matured on and off the field, Jets can get something out of Corley. And look, Corley to me does bring something to the table. And this segues into Danger Zone very well. So Corley is a very fast player. But the thing I love about Corley when he came out of the draft was he is a thick receiver. He's like a Deebo Samuel. He's small, but he weighs a lot. So he's very difficult to tackle, and he can pinball off of guys. Like, to me, Arian Smith you can use on a jet sweep, for example. But the thing with Arian Smith is he's not going to run over a linebacker. Malachi Corley could run over linebackers in this league. He could run over corners in this league, especially if he gets into the third level. He can run over defensive backs because he's that big of a bruiser. So the reason I look at him, if he can develop in my ideal world, when I envision him, I see a Deebo Samuel type like last year. And again, I know it was incredibly frustrating because he dropped the ball on the one, but the play design with the jet sweep, he comes around the edge, and you all knew it when you watched it. Your first thought was, who is that guy? Because we've not seen that all year. And what really annoyed me was, and again, Connor Hughes brought up in the last episode. If you haven't checked that out with Connor, we got a lot of great stuff on the Giants and the Jets draft and the rookie classes. But he told me that basically one of the big reasons Jets didn't use him was the maturity, where he didn't seem to take it as big of a deal as other people did. Now, again, young kid, maybe I at the time said I thought he was just overly excited because he hadn't been getting the football. But the other thing, too, is the maturity is definitely something to keep an eye on. But with Corley, it just felt like this team didn't give him opportunities. Like, I even was screaming last year at times, let him return kickoffs. Like, let him return kickoffs. He's known as the Yak Quote King on social media. Let's see if he can take one and get a big return. And they never did that, which really annoyed me. And especially with Isaiah Davis, who, again, is a nice returner, but I'm looking at a key cog in the running back room, and I don't want to potentially sacrifice a decent running back on a kick return play. I just don't. I just don't want to see that. Let's see. Would you like to see Joe Douglas spend the third round pick that was originally his? I'm guessing in Philly. Danger Zone. I need a little bit more context in there. Rico brings up a good one, and Michael Carter II is an X factor. When he's healthy, he's had no issue in playmaking, although rarely utilized. He can offer something as a blitzer. Look, Michael Carter, to me, like when I looked at this, Rico, and to give you full transparency, when I did this list, I kind of wanted to go a little outside the box. Like, I think Michael Carter, like, we know if he's healthy, he's a very good corner in this league. A lot of the guys on our list were more of guys like we don't really know necessarily what they are. I think Jermaine's probably the most polished, but even then, I think last year was the big breakout year where we were really expecting him to take a next step before he unfortunately got injured. Like, I think a better example to me than MC2 would be Ruckert. Ruckert right now is an intriguing player because I thought the Jets were really going to double dip at the tight end position, or at least bring in some interesting tight ends in the undrafted period, and they really didn't. So they're going in with Stone, basically Mason Taylor, and Ruckert. Now, Ruckert has a chance, and now again, I don't think Ruckert's going to become this team's number one tight end this year by any stretch. But now does Ruckert, who's had an up and down career, now with an offense that's going to utilize more 12 personnel, more tight ends, now knows the quarterback, has a rapport with this quarterback from college. Is he going to take a big step? Like, he basically was the sixth man in this video. Like, I really wanted to put Ruckert on this list, but I thought Braylon Allen, just for the long-term impact, was a little bit more interesting. Because, again, I think the Jets in the tight end room, I think the thought process, Mason Taylor's going to be this team's number one tight end moving forward. Where Braylon Allen, you could make that argument like I did. Maybe there's a world where we look at this Jet team and maybe they consider going a different direction in their running back room. Brandon Steve, that's a good one, Danger Zone. I'll give you that. Because look, Brandon Stephens, I think, is a really interesting character. And it's funny for a guy that still has not played a single snap for the Jets. It feels like he's one of these guys who the Jet fans are already starting to turn against, which is unfair. Because again, the Jets did give him a lot of money. He's still a young player. The big thing is I think we need to see what role he's going to be in. He's going to have a role on this team. Like, if you had to ask me today, I think Brandon Stephens is probably this team's week 1 starting corner. But if Azeez comes on faster in the 3rd round, develops faster, does he push Stephens to safety? Because maybe the Jets have an injury at safety. Like, maybe, let's say, one of the safeties gets hurt and they're thinner at safety than they are at corner, and they move Stephens to safety and he plays well at safety. So I do think he's a big X factor. But again, they gave him a lot of money. They basically gave him a 2-year contract. So by all stretch of the imagination, he's going to be here for the foreseeable future. Justin Fields, there's a scenario where he could be one and done potentially. Jeremy Rucker, who I mentioned, who wasn't on the list, could be out of here after next season. I look at Malachi Corley. There's a chance he might not be here long term. All the guys I pretty much put on the list outside really are kind of on that bubble where there are scenarios where they are not back for the long term. I don't feel that way. I think AG wants JJ, but you're right about the injury factor, man. If anyone AG, I think, Rico, that is an excellent point, and that's the thing. I think Jermaine is the player that Aaron Glenn would love. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is this is also a business. And I'm just throwing this out there. If Jermaine Johnson comes back and plays like the 2023 Jermaine Johnson, I think he gets a long-term extension. He's a Jet for a long time. But if he's slow coming off the Achilles, and we've seen guys struggle like AVT, we saw took a while to really get his sea legs back. And look, if he starts the season slow but comes on strong at the end because he's getting healthier and because he's getting more used to his Achilles, and he finishes with like 7 sacks, then yeah, I think that there is definitely a long-term future. But if he suffers another major injury, I mean, that's 2 seasons back-to-back with major injuries, and you're looking at long-term. If you're really Darren Muji and you're Aaron Glenn, you're probably looking at saying, we love the kid, we love what he brings, but are we willing to give him top defensive end money to basically be for a guy that keeps getting injury? And look, I agree. I think Jermaine Johnson should be a team captain this year. I do think that's a great point, Danger Zone. I full-heartedly agree. Thank God the cap keeps rising. Should go a long way toward keeping 1 or 2 extra guys. Yeah, and I did see Joe Douglas getting rehired today. I mean, again, playing that chess with getting the 3rd round pick for Hassan Reddick. But look, the Jets are getting the 4th round pick back. I don't think it's a huge loss. And look, it's clear that Joe Douglas, I'm not going to have any sour grapes about it. Look, it's clear the Eagles wanted him. It's clear that he has friends in that organization. All I can say is good luck. It didn't work here. It was frustrating the way it worked out. I don't think Joe Douglas is a bad guy. It's just frustrating that it didn't work out here. And look, the Eagles have a great structure. They're trying to obviously match what they've created there. But look, we'll see what Darren Muji can do. We'll see what Aaron Glenn can do, because I do think that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to picking the right players and picking the right pieces for this team. And we'll see. The Jets, like we talked about, this draft was interesting. I think they filled a lot of holes. I don't think it was a sexy draft, but I do think you see the type of player that they're really looking for. And look, there's still some guys. Like, these were my top 5 X factors. And a lot of it came down to long-term. Because when I looked at a lot of these players, if they don't work out this year and there's long-term questions, that could elongate the rebuild. So if I went through the 5, and again, guys, comment below, super chats, jump to the front of the line if you want to make a donation to the channel. Let's go Justin Fields. If Justin Fields looks like a starting caliber quarterback, maybe not a franchise, but a guy who can lead this team and maybe even bring this team to the playoffs, that changes the dynamic of the Jets, because all of a sudden then in 2026, they're not desperate to go up and get a quarterback. Maybe they let the draft board fall them and they get a very good developmental player that can sit behind Fields for a year or two and then come in. If Justin Fields is bad or gets hurt, then it changes, because the Jets' next offseason is going to be all about getting the young quarterback. When I look at Braylon Allen, for example, if he's really good and really productive and Breece Hall's a little on the fence, and the Jets feel like Breece Hall isn't in their long-term plan because of the money he's going to command, maybe he becomes a piece to help expedite the rebuild. Maybe a team gives you a late first-round pick who's pushing for, and they feel Breece Hall's the missing piece, and they don't mind paying a running back at that point. I look at Malachi Corley. If Malachi Corley is a solid receiver, I'm not even saying being a number 2, but just being a really good number 3 return guy that can do a bunch of different things to the table, then it changes the dynamic, because all of a sudden now the Jets don't have to go out and get another receiver. If Taylor III is a solid defensive tackle, they don't have to address the interior defensive line as much as they might have to next offseason. If Jermaine Johnson is great, then they don't have to worry about defensive end. But if he gets hurt again, we'll be sitting here probably next offseason going, defensive ends probably a top 3 team need, especially the way this team wants to play defense. So that's why I looked at these X factors. Again, there's plenty of X factors on this team. I mean, Quincy Williams, how will he play if he doesn't get a new contract? I mean, Quinnen, obviously, with maybe the lack of an interior defensive tackle, how's he going to play this year? The offensive line's an interesting one. I think AVT is a fascinating one. AVT kind of is in the same boat for me as Jermaine Johnson. And I've talked about it a couple times on this channel. But if Elijah Vera Tucker has a great season, he'll get paid by the Jets. But if he only starts 12 games, gets hurt again, he'll be 28, and the Jets might look at it and go, is it worth it for us to pay him for someone that's been injury-prone the last couple of years? Or is it better, because here's the other scenario you have to keep in mind with a lot of GMs and a lot of regimes now. Is it more effective to let them go to free agency, have a team overpay for them, pay them $20 million a year, and then you reap the rewards of the compensation picks? Like we're seeing that with Philadelphia. If they feel like the player doesn't meet the money value and they can get a draft pick for him, they're moving off of them. And that's one of the reasons, it feels like the Eagles every year have 20 million draft picks, even though they win the Super Bowl. So that to me would definitely be one of those things that I could definitely see happening. And look, I love Danger Zone's idea of trading Breece midseason. Look, and the other thing too is, I've said this about Breece Hall. I'm not trading him. I said the times you trade him, there's 2 times. If he has a great season, but the Jets are struggling this year at the trade deadline, someone gives you an offer you can't refuse, you do it then. Or at the end of next season when he's trying to get a new contract and there's a team that will give you a pick and will also pay the contract. Because the Jets also have to make some big financial decisions in the coming years. I mean, we know they're going to pay Sauce. We know they're going to pay Garrett. Then it comes down to, do you pay Jermaine? Do you pay AVT? Do you pay you're going to have to re-up Quinnen at some point. I mean, there's a lot of big questions coming down the pike for who the Jets are going to pay in the long term. But the other big things too is, again, if these guys are answers instead of questions, it makes the Jets' life a lot easier. If Justin Fields is an answer at quarterback, it makes the Jets' life the next year or two a lot easier. If Malachi Corley is an answer, not a question in that wide receiver room, makes it a lot easier. If Leonard Taylor answers the question if he's a starting caliber defensive tackle or is an answer in that D tackle room, it makes life a lot easier. Jermaine Johnson is an answer and doesn't have questions about his health or durability. That's huge for the Jets. A lot of these guys, if they answer their expectations or meet the expectations or even exceed them to a degree, you would feel pretty good about those players and how they're going to contribute to the Jets. If they fall short of that, then it raises other questions. Like Braylon Allen was a great example. If we are sitting here and we look at Braylon Allen and we get to the midseason, we see, okay, he's a nice running back, but he's better as a change of pace back. He's a good piece in a running back room, but he's not the main guy. Like, you would like to hopefully have him be like the Ty Montgomery of this team, like the hammer of this running game, and having another home run type of back like Jahmyr Gibbs, like they do in Detroit. But if Allen looks more like, okay, he's good for good 10, 12 carries, but he doesn't look like that head feature back, or he doesn't look like he can be a real bell cow, then it's harder to trade Breece Hall. But if we're here and we're looking at Braylon Allen saying he's a dynamic kid, he's younger, Breece, again, maybe he's getting a little nicked up. Maybe Breece is looking more as a pass catcher, which I think will happen this year, than a runner. Maybe there's a scenario where the Jets are sitting there and they go, okay, we really like Breece Hall, but some team's going to give us a first-round pick. And if we are not sure about Justin Fields, that could help us get the future quarterback. And if the Jets have already kind of decided, look, we're not going to overpay for Breece Hall, then it might behoove them to, if Braylon Allen looks like an answer at the running back room, and basically it's 1A and 1B more than 1 and a huge gap to 2, maybe the Jets do pull the trigger at that point. I mean, these are just scenarios that I could imagine. Yeah, I'm praying that doesn't happen, Danger Zone, because basically this channel will be like it's been for the last couple of years. This is Jet therapy, and it's also a lot cheaper, I might add. Look, like I just hope, guys, that when we do the show, because again, if you're new to the channel, we go live after every single Jets game, not just home game, every single Jet game, to break down the game. We get to your comments. We take you the pulse of the fan base, see where they are. So again, if you're joining us during the season, make sure to like and subscribe. But I just don't want to be here before Halloween again talking about the NFL draft. And it's ironic because I love the NFL draft. I love talking about the quarterbacks. If you don't believe me, look at all the mock drafts I made just for the New York Jets this offseason. But the thing is, it just, because then if we're talking about, we know at that point the season's pretty much over. We know that the Jets are not going anywhere. We know it's going to be a fun 2.5 months to end the season. And more importantly, it means that Justin Fields didn't work. And I am rooting for Justin Fields to work here, because if you're a Jet fan, you want Justin Fields to be good. You want Justin Fields to look like a top 10 pick. You want Justin Fields. I'm not even saying Justin Fields be a top 10 quarterback. Can he be a top 16, a top half of the league quarterback? If you find that, you can be a playoff team. And the big thing then is, if you have the quarterback figured out with Justin Fields, and it might not even be for a long time, just for 3-4 years, you can build this roster out and build a really good team around him, as opposed to having to trade assets and going up to get a young quarterback and going through the growing pains of a young quarterback and developing a young quarterback effectively. Because again, we've seen the Jets time and time again over these last 15 years draft young quarterbacks and not know how to develop them, or develop them too early, or rush them into things. And even if Fields is a solid quarterback, it could buy you time to then at least have him start, and you draft someone to sit behind Justin Fields and learn the position instead of rushing them in there. Because the Jets rushed Sam Darnold in there, which was the wrong decision. They rushed Zach Wilson in there twice. They rushed Zach Wilson after Aaron Rodgers when he still wasn't ready. So again, I do understand the frustration with Jet fans, but with these X factors, a lot of it too is I didn't want to just look at guys for the 2025 season. I wanted to see, like, for the 2025 and beyond. Like, if Malachi Corley pans out, then the Jets have an answer at wide receiver for potentially 5 to 7 years. Braylon Allen could be a potential answer at the running back position. Justin Fields, the quarterback position. Leonard Taylor the third. Sorry, I got those mixed up. Leonard Taylor the third as a defensive tackle. And, of course, Jermaine Johnson. I want Jermaine Johnson to be a part of that first-round trio. I mean, we know Sauce. We know Garrett Wilson, but we need to see Jermaine come back healthy. And I love Jermaine. I love the energy he brings. I want him to be a Jet long-term. But we also need him to produce and be healthy this year. Because if he isn't, then this defense is in a lot of trouble. Because we're just penciling in, like we did last year, unfortunately, Jermaine Johnson being out there for 17 games. And we saw what happened when he wasn't out there 17 games. I love Will McDonald, but Will McDonald is not a run-stopping defensive end. And despite the Jets cutting all the fat with Greg Zuerlein and cutting all the fat in the special teams kicking room, the one guy who survives is Michael Clemens. And again, I'm getting to the point now. I'm convinced Michael Clemens is like some embarrassing photo or some blackmail on the Jets, because I do not know how for the life of me that guy is still a member of this freaking team. I know this coaching staff probably wants to give him an opportunity, but man, I'm just kind of done at this point. If they can make Michael Clemens into even a decent backup player, that might just prove to us, and maybe this coaching staff is for real, because I just don't see it. I see someone that has obviously lacked discipline, and I don't know how that's going to work under Aaron Glenn. So I do love Danger Zone. Again, go check him out on Twitter, because he's had some great posts about our good friend Michael Clemens. And again, like, he is basically the Jets cockroach, because nothing will kill him and nothing will apparently get him off this roster. I do feel like when they do cut him, we will do a special episode. I'll have Danger Zone on live, and we will have a celebration. We'll pop champagne. We'll talk about like the Michael Clemens era in full detail, but we will have a lot to talk about with that when that finally happens. But again, for everyone here, you can make sure to check us out wherever podcasts are streaming: iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are available. You can check us out there. And again, these were my top 5 Jets X factors for the 2025 season. And more importantly, looking at their long-term impact and fit for this new Jets team and regime. Again, check out our community page. If you're not liked and subscribed already, come on, guys, hit those buttons. So again, you A, don't miss any of our great content, but B, we want to get as many great Jets fans in this community as possible. And the more you like and subscribe, the more great Jets fans we can get in here. And if you're joining us after the video or the podcast, make sure to comment your questions below, and I will be happy to answer them. But like I was saying about our YouTube channel specifically, if you check out the community page, you get the option to select the videos. And guys, this was your doing. Again, you picked this out of a choice of 4 that you wanted the top Jets X factors for the 2025 season. You said what you wanted to see, and I heard you. So again, I always will do that throughout the off season. We'll have plenty of ideas and creative videos as we start getting ready for training camp. A lot more great Jets content and other great sports content is coming to this channel. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. But until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this has been Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us here today.